You are listening to The Morning Spice here on Hott 107.5. And I'm your hostess with the mostest, Alex Symone. And would you believe it? I have some guests in the studio this morning. Please send positive energies and great vibrations to Miss Tammisha Francis Wainwright, who is here for the Learning Partnerships. She's here to talk to us about that today. And of course, we have the Honorable Diallo Rabane, JPMP Minister of Education. It's been a while, Minister. We've missed you here on Hott 107.5. You haven't been to the Morning Spice in a while, and the listeners have been asking, so I'm glad that you're here and you brought guests today. Good morning.
Good morning, Alex. Good morning to your listening audience.
Good morning, Alex. Good morning, Bermuda. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, I just have to start off before we jump into the nitty-gritty of all the great things. I also want to say this ring that you have on right now is a moment. I'm here for this ring. It's very beautiful. Yes. I'm here for the ways that it looks and feels. But I know that we're here to talk about signature learning partners. And as we've sort of been on this journey in education, we've been hearing a lot of different parts of how, you know, there's going to be private companies working in conjunction with what this looks like and the programs that are going to be offered. So I'm really excited to talk about this as we've been keeping people abreast and up to date. So the first question I have for you, Miss Tammisha. Is it okay if I call you Miss Wainwright?
You can just call me Tammisha.
Call you Tammisha? Okay, because sometimes you want to ask, you don't want to just assume that that's okay. But Tammisha, can you just tell us a little bit about what the Learning Partnership has been and what it's provided for teachers and students at the Berkeley Institute? Is it the same thing for both schools? Is it different programs depending on what the school needs? Can you just sort of give a little background to that?
So basically, our learning partnerships have been the same between the two schools because it's system-wide. When a learning partner joins, they actually join for the system. We've decided to move from, instead of moving from a school system to a system of schools. However, we have paired the learning partners based on the signatures, and some of them actually have moved between the two schools based on the signatures. So we may have someone like ABIC who is working between Berkeley and Cedar Bridge, but you will have someone like the BZS, Bermuda Zoological Society, who's working primarily with Cedar Bridge Academy because of the STEM location. And on learning partners, we've always had community partners, industry partners, but with education reform, it's actually changed quite a bit. The learning partners have become more involved in the day-to-day learning in the classroom. So thus the change of the name from learning partnerships, industry partners to learning partners. So they're now involved in co-designing the curriculum, co-developing, co-delivering the curriculum, also still doing things like the internships, still doing work placements and work shadowing, but we've actually added more. So they are very much involved in some of the day-to-day professional learning, helping teachers to upskill. So therefore, teachers are actually being trained for very specific industry-based training that they can apply into the classroom. And so when you look at how that's changed the face of it, we have a group of students and a learning partner that's currently right now down at North Shore Medical, where students are actually presenting a case from the marketing course to Dr. Brown.
Wow.
And that was through Focus, another partner, through Focus Management. That's a marketing company.
Yeah.
So it's very different moving forward.
So that change of it being a sort of, I want to say like a stepping, a touching after the learning process has now become an integral part of the process of making what this looks like now.
Yes.
So now you have the community partners, the leaders, the businesses actually being a part of, well, this is the industries and this is how we started out front.
They are very much involved in the entire learning process. So they're not waiting to reach a student afterwards to provide that on-the-job training, but they're in the classroom, they're part of the actual process. So it's real-world learning that's taking place.
That's actually really cool, especially for the fact that we're trying to make sure that we're creating students that are global citizens, that are able to like go and work anywhere, to be able to have folks in the industry say, hey, here's some of the things that can help you get out front.
They are very much involved in the entire learning process. So they're not waiting to reach a student afterwards to provide that on-the-job training, but they're in the classroom, they're part of the actual process. So it's real-world learning that's taking place.
That's actually really cool, especially for the fact that we're trying to make sure that we're creating students that are global citizens, that are able to like go and work anywhere, to be able to have folks in the industry say, hey, here's some of the things that can help you get there is really important. So what feels different for you in terms of the teaching and learning in the signature programs? What feels different to you about that?
So I will tell you, the realness, the actual physical experience is what's very different right now. So when I think about the marketing course, before you have the marketing class, we will have a curriculum that's being followed, and you will apply that knowledge just based on what's coming out of a book. But when you think about a class that's actually working with a marketing company who's sharing and lending their client, and the client saying, I want to be involved, and that's between Focus, Marketing, and Dr. Brown, and they're doing the research, going to the company, doing actual research, asking questions, observing different types of procedures taking place. And now you're down there, as we speak right this moment, providing Dr. Brown with a sales pitch for his marketing company that he will use. That is a whole different type of learning that is
changes
taking
the
place.
game.
That is a big time game changer.
And especially now that you're looking at kids, they're all in the TikTok, they're all in social media. Everything is very much being learned through experience, through doing. So being able to have something that that brings that together in a real life experience, like you said, a real world teaching is super high.
And then think about when we had Dr. Walker on, when you're thinking about BZS actually teaching a course at Cedar Bridge Academy. That's very new. So prior to that, our teachers and our students only had engagements with BZS, the aquarium, when they went down for maybe so many different engagements throughout the year. But now we actually have them right there in the classroom. That is a big game changer. And Bermuda BIOS, that type of involvement, we've had them support our students in the past, but now they are actually part of our part of the curriculum and supporting the curriculum. So that's a lot of those things are changing. ABIC, they actually sponsored 10 teachers to take a credential course, so that the teachers will actually experience what they're getting ready to teach the students. And this is an industry credential. So this builds towards someone in the industry that will have this in order to work and be identified within the insurance industry. So it's very specific based. That's different.
Wow, so learning partnerships are now a new way with the new public school signature school system that's coming through. This is a new way to work together and collaborate. But seems like a pretty big undertaking.
Yes, it is.
Is it? How has that been? And real, like, keep it 100 a buck. How challenging has it been? What what has this looked like in real time to put something like this together? Because again, we've talked about having the integral part of these industry folks coming in and giving tools to help. How has it been to try to organize this, place this all down? How are you doing? How's it been?
Well, I am gonna keep it 100. There are definitely there's work, and some negotiations have taken over a year. So we always had relationships with and like I said, we've had industry partners where we went to them for work placements. My colleague LeVar and I, when we did our work as career pathways coordinators, the students always went out for work placements, and that was part of the graduation requirements after completing employability skills. So we knew that our students needed to have the opportunity to be employable. You know that we know that our students were the 18 to 25 were the highest unemployed rates. Category in Bermuda. So we knew we had to do something about that. So with that, we implemented employability skills and then a work placement to follow up behind that. We had the relationships. Now we were changing it where the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, actually committed to the complements to ensure that we had longevity, to ensure that we had consistency, to ensure that irrespective of who the people were at the table, our students will still be able to have that consistent relationship. And we expanded upon it, which we Memorandum of Understanding actually committed to the complements to ensure that we had longevity, to ensure that we had consistency, to ensure that irrespective of who the people were at the table, our students will still be able to have that consistent relationship. And we expanded upon it, which we already spoke about some of those types of changes to make it a little bit better. So when you think about this with the MOU, we're talking about other parts of Bermuda government getting involved. The Attorney General's chambers had to get involved with looking at that legal document. It had to go through the entire process with the minister and that level of government getting involved. So it was quite a bit of work that had to get in that. So think about the companies. One company, KPMG, their risk department had to review it. Legal departments on the other end have to review it. So it's very much a live and legal document and commitment to a number of years to participate in this learning partnership. So it is quite a bit of work. Yeah. And then bringing two sets of people to the table together and relationship building. So, the busy in the world of work, out in industry, and the busy in the school. And you're talking about bringing these two parties together and build a relationship for students. That's another layer. So it is quite a bit of work.
Wow. Keep up the resiliency.
Thank you.
Because for me that sounds very of course there's a lot of negotiating what we can do, what you can do, what this looks like, while keeping in mind that there are so many parts to this. You have the parents, you have the students, you have the teachers, you have the principals. There's so many different moving people while you're walking into these rooms and trying to figure out, well, how am I going to make sure to keep the balance and also hold the standard. So 100% just listening to you talk, you said some of these negotiations have been a year in process. And I know a lot of times when we're looking at the public, and especially for the listeners, when things are sort of introduced, it's well, what's this? And it's well, these questions are important, but we're still in the midst of actually making this happen. So thank you so much for that overview. But Minister Rebane, we know that there will be both celebrations and challenges during this education reform process. There was a series of meetings with the communities back in April. What has been done? What's been some of your overall feedback from the parents and staff?
Well, Alex, and first I just want to take this opportunity to thank Tammisha and her team. It has been a phenomenal process that they have gone through to get these learning partners on, and we're looking at further ones upcoming. We'll be signing MOUs with further organizations as we move forward. The key to this was we wanted a education system that when our students left, they did not leave with just a diploma. They left with experiences, they left with contacts, they left with whether it be international designations, whether it be micro-credentials. They would leave with the opportunities to go directly into the working world and be qualified to do that, or go off to further their education. And so this is where we're seeing some of the fruit, some of the efforts come to fruition here. In terms of, and I think one thing that you hit on, which is really, really critical, that there are so many moving parts. And Tammisha mentioned some of the stuff has taken over a year. And that kind of leads into the question you asked about some of the things that we've been doing. This is a long game, and we recognize this. It's a long game. And so what we have been recognizing with some of the meetings that we've had, because in April, when we came out with the various meetings we're having around the country, it was to say, this is what the plan is going to look like for the next to 2029. And we recognize that although we've been working at this for almost 4 years now. There are some people out there that have only just started to pay attention. There are some people who've been here from the beginning, and so they kind of saw the progression. There are some people like, wait a minute, what? You're going to do what? So they're getting caught by surprise. So we recognize that a different approach, it has to be taken. And we are looking at what that different approach is going to be as we move forward. There's opportunities here for persons to get involved, give their feedback. There's opportunities for us to tweak some of the things we're doing as we're moving forward. And so what we're doing is, from the 40, I believe it was around 40 meetings we had in April, we're still looking at that data. We're still crunching that information to see what is the next step and how we're going to move forward from there. And we're committed to going back out and meeting with persons, the same people we met with before, meeting again to say, hey, we heard what you had to say. We've listened to what you have to say. Here's where the comments that you've made can integrate into forming how we move forward from here. Also, here's some of the things that you have to going back out and meeting with persons, the same people we met with before, meeting again to say, hey, we heard what you had to say. We've listened to what you have to say. Here's where the comments that you've made can integrate into forming how we move forward from here. Also, here's some of the things that you have said, but here's the explanation of why we still have to go along the pathway that needs to be done. One thing that we always want people to understand is everything that we do, everything that we say takes into account what our children need in order to be successful as we move forward. And in some cases, it can be quite difficult to actually look at, try and remember what schooling was for me, and try and form that vision.
Not trying to remember.
And what schooling's going to look like for the children of the future.
How long has it been? How long has it been where you need to try to remember?
Well, I'm speaking of all of us.
First off, you need to speak for yourself. I just turned 21. It's been a wild ride for me, these 21 years on life. And I mean, from what you're saying in terms of the things that the conversations you've been having, the meetings you've been having, I've seen things popping up in the media. I've seen you doing and having these conversations. Has any of this surprised you? This response, has while you've been going through this process, what this looks like, has any of this surprised you?
That is a big question. Okay, yes, some things surprise me. No, some things don't surprise me. Well, I think one of the biggest surprises for me was actually hearing persons say, I didn't think that you guys would even get this far. So I didn't bother to pay attention anyway.
Wow.
And that's something that's been admitted. And we're not talking about just people off the street. We have educators that have actually said that. And so that is probably the biggest surprise that I've had. This government is committed to reforming education. And reforming education requires us to understand that it's not going to happen overnight. It's not, all the answers are not going to be readily apparent just because we say we want to change something. Some things require a process before the answer actually forms itself. One of the biggest examples I can give of that is the school transformation teams. That is, right when we started, that was an 18-month process. Because of the feedback we've gotten and what we've done and what we've looked at over the last 3.5 years, what we've been working to do this, we recognize that 18 months might not even be long enough. And it might have to be longer in order for us to do what we need to do and do it properly. And that's the part of managing those expectations that we find ourselves having to sit back and say, okay, how do we manage the expectations better than what we've been doing? Because when we go into these meetings, people are like, well, what's going to happen in 10 years from now?
Right.
Like, we won't know that until these steps fall into place, right? Because what happens tomorrow is going to direct what happens next week. What happens next week is going to direct what happens a month from now, and like that. So sometimes we can't say in 12 months this is what's going to be, because we have to give people an opportunity to actually formulate their ideas and come back and say this is how it's going to look, and then we can start saying, okay, this is how it's going to be. This is what the ideas we've come. Let's now start firming those up. Because at some points, and we'll get through 6 months of stuff, and then we say, something, this might not be working out. This might not be the thing we need. But you can imagine if we come and say, we're going to do A, B, and C, and then we come back 6 months later and say, well, we're not going to do A, we're going to do B, C, and now we're going to do D. It was like, wait a minute, you never said D, but where's A, you know? And so that's where we try our very best to manage those expectations and get persons to understand that the only way to stay involved, the only way to stay really up to date is to be involved. You know, I had a conversation last week with some persons, and you would think nothing was working. Then I had a conversation the next day, and it was nothing but praise for what's working. So we understand there are people at both ends of the spectrum on this, and there are people in the middle, and we just have to continuously work with all of us in order for us to move forward. But the last thing I wanted to kind of stick a pin in that is the success of education is all of our responsibility. Every single person in Bermuda needs to be involved and needs to stay kind of up to date. Find your way, and that's one thing that I've encouraged the teams. We have to find the different ways to keep the person over here, over on the left involved, the person on the right involved, and the people in the middle involved. And that's going to require different approaches for all three of those types of persons.
And I feel like, especially talking about the fact that when people have some, what's the word? Especially talking about the fact that when people have some, what's the word? Reservations.
Apprehension.
Thank you. So I was making an A, but it wasn't coming out. When they have apprehensions, when they have reservations, when they have anger and frustrations, like we've seen, right? It's not amiss to any of the listeners or any of us on the island that there have been some pushback, some very real pushback, and from that there have been changes. Yes.
There have been rethoughts. We definitely plan to change some things or maybe tweak them. Some things that we're saying we want to bring into effect in 2 years might have to take 3 years because we have some other nuance that needs to be worked out. But those are the things that we're working on now. And when we go back, based on the conversations we had, we want to be able to answer a lot of those questions that have been asked. There have been, it's around 700 to 800 questions, and that is individual, different, distinct, distinct questions. There are many more than that, but then like a bunch of them fall in the same bucket.
Category,
So you may ask one way, somebody may ask another way, but it's the same question. But it's taking much longer than we anticipated to actually just go through all of these responses, because we want to make sure that we publish something that says this is the questions you asked, here's the answers to it, and based on the feedback that we've gotten, this is how we're going to look to move forward.
Sweet. I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see that. So, I still want to call you Ms. Wainwright. Tammisha. If folks so if folks want to land their expertise, or like say I'm someone who has a pretty distinct business, or I'm an entrepreneur or something like that, is there a way that I can contact you to sort of become a part of these learning partnerships? Is that available? Is that a thing?
Yes, it is, and it does not matter how large or how small the organization is. We would like to work with everyone. We believe that education is everyone's business. We know that everyone is talking about it, so you might as well get in the match. You can contact us at www.learningfirst.com/4-partners. You can also contact us at the Education Reform Unit office at 441. That's being raised in America, sorry. That's that area code. You gotta
but
give the area code.
but it's very but it's also very now, because on social media you need to know the area code for your WhatsApp and stuff, right? So you're right. You're still in the same, you're cool. You're fine.
Now I've got that song in my head, I've got different area codes.
Yes, come on! What you know about different area codes? I'm gonna play this. Wait. Which one you talking about?
Which one?
I'm just saying.
Are you talking about Ludacris?
278-3375.
And that's why you're on the negotiating team, because you can stay focused. Tammisha said, I am not going to get caught up here with you.
And you can also follow us on the social media to stay connected. You can sign up for our Learning First newsletter at learningfirstbermuda.com. You can also social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Insta, at moedbda@Learning First Bermuda. And also, if you want to email us, you can email us at schoolredesign@moed.bm. Thank you so much.
Tammisha, can you repeat the socials for Alex, please?
Yes, I will.
For me? Shady. But again,
That's the school vow?
yeah. It's also a vow that I use just out of this. Someone gave me a vow and I think it was possibly the worst decision they made because I won't let it go.
I love it.
Yay!
Keep it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Minister Rabane, for coming in this morning. Thank you so much, Tammisha, for coming in and giving us the information. I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm really, really excited about that. And of course, Minister, I'm going to ask you, can I expect to see you sometime soon in the future?
Well, Alex, let me explain.
Yes.
You've asked if we've listened, and what we've made to tweak. One of the things that we've made different is that the people want to hear more from the persons who are actually in the trenches doing the work. So that's why a lot of these appearances have been Tammisha and her team, have been the ERU and their team. Our learning partners have been on. We've had teachers on. We've had principals on. So we're trying to get people to see the people who are actually doing the work and pulling this together instead of just the minister. But before we wrap up,
You know I agree with that. I'm behind that 100%.
before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you, Alex, for having us, and all of this blue and blue that I see in this room.
Yes,
today.
isn't it amazing? Look at
wonderful.
this. I
It is
mean,
wonderful to
sometimes
see.
when you do vow, you get rewarded. And I'm rewarded by all the blue and blue that I see around me. Good job, guys. And all together now, let's say it. Say joy!